I think this will, in all probabilities, I think this is expected to be implemented from April. I only wish that this would help the employers, the workers, unions, as well as the enforcement wing. Right. Thank you so much. Now let us see whether we can take up a few queries. I could see 74 queries. As I said in the beginning, this session, it is not actually meant for discussing the compliance aspect, because several times we have discussed on that. We will continue to have doubts, absolutely no issues, but still let us understand we may not have time to discuss all those things, right? So far we are contributing 12% PF on employees' full basic salary. Is it fine that is it fine that going forward we can cap every employee salary at 50? It is fine. See, even if you are making a contribution on the actual salaries of the employees, which is much above 15,000, if you want to reduce it, this statutory ceiling, you can do that, right? That will not be considered as reduction as mentioned in the section 12 of the current Employees Provident Funds Act, right? So there are case laws which will support your cause. If you want to restrict your contributions to 15,000, you can do so. But again, my question here is, if you had added this amount in your CTC, then I'm doubtful whether you can reduce it, because when we say CTC is not defined anywhere in any of the labor laws. It is only in practice, right? But one situation where officially the term CTC was used was during the pandemic, right? I think for a specific period, the rate of contribution towards PF, that was reduced from 12% to 10%, and that was also not made available to those establishments which have committed in their CTC that they would make 12%. So please understand that there is a risk. So when you go for CTC, I think we should be very, very careful in drafting the appointment order. Otherwise, even the rate of contribution is coming down as per the Act. You may not be in a position to do so because you have already committed. Contract of employment, it is a binding contract. It is a valid contract, it is binding contract. So even though as per the Act you need not pay, otherwise you may have to continue to pay that, right? So I would only suggest you be aware of all these points. So while if you want to mention CTC as consideration in the contract of employment, you can very well do so, but do the drafting very, very carefully, so that tomorrow when the law changes, you also should be in a position to change, right? So you may have to draft it in such a fashion that should safeguard your interest. That would be my suggestion. And the Shops and Establishment Tax is not covered in any of the labor codes. Does it mean S&D will continue to stand? Yes. See, whatever labor codes or whatever reforms or changes we are talking about, it is only in the central sphere, right? It is only with respect to the central labor laws, right? I think it is estimated as 44. It is not actually so, but as per the codes, the existing 29 central legislations, right, it is getting subsumed into 4 codes, right? So the state specific Shops and Establishments Act, that will continue to be there. In case if you are running a commercial establishment, assume that you are operating in Karnataka, the Karnataka Shops and Commercial Establishments Act will continue to be your governing legislation, right? That is how it is. So whatever changes we are talking about, it is happening only in the central sphere. And would be helpful, we can have the recording of today. See, please send a mail. I think 60 minutes compliance mail ID would have been already shared to you. Organizers will definitely arrange, right? I think some question on compliance is there. I'm not getting into that. So far, we are contributing 12% PF on employees' full basic salary. Okay, I think same question. Yeah. Let me check whether I can take a few more questions. Medical examination of contract labor above 45 years will be paid by the principal employer. See, I think since the contractor is also made as employer specifically under the definition of the term employer, at least to begin with, the liability will lie with the contractor. Then let us see how it pans out. So for in respect of the contract workers, the issue of appointment order, it is to be done by the contractor. and the medical examination, it is to be done by the contractor, right? We will have it like that. Then let us see how it gets developed. And permitted deductions provision under the wages code will be now applicable to all employees. Does this mean clawback provisions such as return of joining bonus cannot be contractually implemented? I really don't understand the question actually. Permitted deductions provision under the wages code will be now applicable to all employees. I think that first portion is very clear. That will be applicable to all employees now. Even if a person is drawing more than 1 lakh, I think you cannot deduct more than 50%. So because that person also is also coming under the purview. Second portion, I am not very clear. Does this mean clawback provisions such as return of joining bonus? I don't understand what is joining bonus. I'm sorry. Yeah, OT consent from workers. Is it return one? See, earlier draft very clearly mentioned it as return consent, right? But the last one which was released, they did not say it as return one. But tomorrow, if somebody is questioning us, then how will we prove that we have got the consent? So it is always better to put it in writing, right? So yeah, generally you change the add one clause in the appointment order so that maybe making it convenient to you so that you can ask those persons for doing overtime whenever required, and subsequently when it actually happens, then also maybe 2 days or 3 days prior to that, you clearly draft a small letter for that, get the consent signed, get the draft signed by the worker concerned, keep it in the file, so that tomorrow if somebody questions us, even the inspector, assume, or even the worker, if he himself says that I have not given the consent, but they are compelling, something like that, then we will not be in a position to prove ourselves. So it is always better to get it in writing, right? Have a pre-printed format. Who will pay for the reskilling fund? Principal employer or the contractor? See, again, this is about retrenchment. When we say retrenchment, I think no question of contractor or principal employer, right? It is employer and worker, right? So maybe I would say contract worker, they will not fall under the purview of ID Act at all, right? So this will not be applicable to contract workers. This is for those who are having the direct relationship. And is registration required under Chapter 4 ESIC, even there is no coverable employee? No, minimum number, if it is there, then it is to be done. So for the applicability of the establishment, if there is minimum number, then only then it is to be done. Otherwise, it is not required. Can you please provide with an example that whether OT shall be calculated from basic wages, new code, or gross salary? See, again, see, whatever components you will take into account for deciding wages, all those components are to be considered, right? See, earlier, if it is a factory, we used to include only basic and DA, because earlier when we pay allowances, it was clearly allowance actually, right? Which means it was a contingent payment. It was a conditional payment, clearly different from basic and DA. That is the reason, in fact, we were calculating OT only on basic and DA. Subsequently, I think position got changed. We merely made the nomenclature as, say, conveyance allowance or project allowance or soft furnishing allowance or entertainment. Absolutely, there was no specific reasoning. Otherwise, except the name, otherwise it was treated on par with basic only, right? That is the reason slowly the position changed and people started calculating OT on the entire gross salary, because even though we call it as allowances, it was not originally allowances. It was not truly allowances. But now I think the definition is made clear under the code wages. So what are all the components which fall under the definition of the code, right? So we know what is excluded. Bonus is excluded. Employer's contribution towards PF is excluded. Conveyance allowance is excluded. OT is excluded. Commission is excluded. So you exclude all those things. Even now, when you pay conveyance allowance, but it is not truly conveyance, then you may have to include. That's a different story. If it is really conveyance, you exclude. If it is really commission, you exclude. If it is really OT, you exclude. Right? That is how it is. So other components you have to consider as part of salary, and for that amount you have to calculate overtime. That is how it is. I think it is time once again. Thank you so much for your patient listening, and it is almost 1.5 hours since we started. So look forward to meet you once again in the next session in the 60 minutes compliance series. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Best wishes to all of you.